So you've saved, you've invested, and you've sacrificed. But retiring well isn't guaranteed. So today, we're going to talk about a number of things. It's not the visible costs, it's the silent missteps. The wrong withdrawal order, missed taxes, timing, and emotional pivots during market dips. So today we're going to explore the most common retirement mistakes and how to avoid them before they cost you your options. Okay. I always don't know where to start. So welcome to episode 60 of the Wealth Guide podcast. Can't believe. But actually this is our first one in the sixes, like it's getting there. Right?
Hitting retirement age.
There you go. Anyone would think you know what we're talking about today. So, first of all, David, welcome.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you again. Jojo, I know you're not feeling well today, but lucky we are going to be talking about retirement, so you are feeling old and weathered, so it's an appropriate subject.
It's good to have David with us.
It absolutely is. And Ricky?
Yeah, good to be here.
It's always good to be with you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. So today we're going to talk about retirement mistakes. I'll say that one more time. Today we're going to talk about retirement mistakes to avoid and what most people get wrong. Me firstly, I think the thing to get wrong is actually retiring. We sure work forever. It keeps us young. But basically, if we think about it, you go through your whole life, you've saved, you've invested, you've sacrificed, and then retiring well, and we've had conversations about this in the past, it isn't always guaranteed. So, there's invisible costs, there's visible costs. What are the missteps that can happen? Withdrawing at the wrong time or the wrong order, taxes, bits and pieces. So I just really want to work through those with you guys today and just sort of unpack what that looks like and explore those mistakes, how we can potentially talk to clients about how to avoid them before they actually happen, and protect our clients and give our brokers also the opportunity to think about things that they can be asking their clients as well.
Absolutely.
So do you want to kick off, Ricky? Because retirement is your superpower.
Look, I love retirement, Mel. It's something that the clients get really worried about. Some of the other things that we look at is clients think that it's too far away. I don't have to worry about it. So they think, I don't have to worry about retirement, and then sometimes a bit too late. So we see clients on different spectrums when they're working and through their retirement cycle. So yeah, it's good to see. It's a very great topic to talk about.
It is.
Jack, what do you see on that retirement thing?
As we call it in our world sometimes, the permanent holiday, the long holiday to get there. But it'll be interesting. We've got David here as well to get his thoughts. Thanks, Mel.
Are you actually going to give us your thoughts? You've sidebarred that really well, Jack. You know what? We're going to take a ticket. We'll come back to you. It's like you're at the deli counter. You're still selecting your goods. All right.
My thoughts around it.
Oh, here we go. Has a thought now.
It's processing. Data. It's processing. It's coming.
Yeah, there are so many other things I want to say to you. I don't think it's data. I think it's mice running really fast.
No, we're
Get more cheese in there.
We're living in a.
It needs more cheese.
More cheese. Yeah.
Sorry, guys. As you can see, we're all very serious in our podcast.
In the world of things, let's go with David, I guess.
Okay, well,
I'll come back to it.
Yeah, sure. I'd say from an investment side, what the key change that I observe moving from an accumulator to a retiree is that your investment strategy changes and you need to be a lot more deliberate and active about it. As an accumulator, and this is generally how I manage my retirement savings at the moment, it's a lot easier to have a set and forget sort of strategy. You can just bang it in a high growth option and, as you said, just not think about it for a long time. But when you hit retirement or transition to retirement, you need to be a lot more active and think about, what are your lifestyle goals, what are your financial goals, and what are the right financial tools and investments to get to that point.
Yeah.
And I don't think enough people recognise that transition.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think isn't there also the consideration of if you're at the age that if you are retiring in that moment, is the market in a dip or is it in a peak? And, is it, how do you then, if you are retiring, how do you pull out? Is it the wisest time or do you sacrifice another year and do it differently?
Yeah, there's a lot of pitfalls. The topic is in the common mistakes. Ricky, what are some of the common mistakes do you think the top top three. The first one. Do you
Well, the first thing comes to my mind is, I've got Centrelink to fall back on.
there you
You
go.
know, I'll have money from the government.
There you go.
You know, which when by the time we come back to it, that's not enough.
Yeah.
The Association of the Super Fund, they've done a research, and then every couple of years they update their numbers, and they put out numbers on how much should a couple or a single need in order to have a comfortable retirement.
If you tell me 50 grand one more time, I'm going to cry.
As a couple, to have a comfortable retirement,
100%.
it's about 72 grand a year.
They
And as a
changed it to
single,
100 now, I think.
well, that's the recent 2025 one. So 72,000 for a couple and 51,000 a year for a single person to have a comfortable retirement. And comfortable retirement, not Centrelink retirement.
Yeah.
What do you get, 30 grand a year from Centrelink?
So it's the common mistakes. So how do we then educate that client? Say, hey, how do we find a solution that's not going to be enough?
But then the separate question is though, it's one thing to say that let's say as a couple in retirement you only need 72 grand a year. How do you spend it wisely?
More importantly, how much asset do you need to back that up?
Okay, great question. Tell
So
us.
in order to have that amount of money, and assuming you get 7-8% return, the association believes you need to have about just under $700,000. Assuming your home loan's paid off, you've got your home to live on, so that's not assuming that you're renting, because if you are, then that's another layer of expense you've got to
Right.
factor in on top. So I think the most common would be underestimating how much you really need in retirement and not really planning and working for it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just say you've done all of that, you're at retirement age. What does withdrawal sequence look like?
That's an interesting question, Mel, because depending on what we've seen, and David, you can back me up on it, like it's when people retire and when, because they're starting to draw money from the super or the
Yeah.
investment, and if you have a market drop, that really could affect their
Yeah.
super balance
That
because
happened to my father-in-law.
because you're drawing money and the market's dropped as well at the same time. So you do see people tend to extend their retirements and things like
That's
that.
got to be so debilitating when that happens to you, especially when you've worked so many years.
Absolutely. Well, that's when we work with a client and we look at alternatives.
Yeah.
To possibly, one of the options is considering extending retirement for another year or two. So that could also be an option. You don't have to work full time, it could also be part time.
Yeah.
So it's just working with what we have available at the moment at that
Yeah.
time.
But
What about
Ricky,
you,
there
David?
are some strategies you can put in place pre-retirement, right, through the transition to retirement phase. That means that if we do end up in one of those situations, and we know that over the long term, markets certainly go up, but they can have short sudden drops, as you alluded to, Mel, and that can throw things around. But the planning doesn't start on the day you retire; it will start well before that.
It's interesting you brought that up because no matter how we educate our clients, this will go up, this will go down. Emotions always run high. It's how we navigate around that.
Yeah.
It's important. It's a common mistake people see and feel, oh, this is my experience around this, it's going to be the same. That's not
Yeah.
always the same.
So we also do, like David, to your point, when we're investing and looking at clients' investment, you do bucketing strategy.
Absolutely.
Where you put a year or 2 years worth of income aside, so even if the market were to drop or there were volatility, that's not affecting their retirement.
Yeah. So forgive me, and I know you know all about it, but I'm going to lean on David for bucketing because I know it's a word that he has mentioned to me in the past and it's something you get quite excited about.
It is, yes.
So talk to me about bucketing because when I'm talking about bucketing, it's usually with a mop and it's in the house. Or soaking clothes.
So it's a concept that's probably not that unfamiliar to people if you frame it a different way. I mean, a lot of people have like different sub-accounts in their life, right? They'll have they might have an emergency fund, they might have a holiday fund, they might have a kids' education fund. These are all different sorts of buckets that we might have in our lives already today, even before we think about it from an investing standpoint.
Yeah.
But the way it works when we think about investing is that we change the structure. Instead of having everything commingled into one big investment, maybe one unit trust, for example, that holds, or what you'd see with an industry super fund, one sort of big omnibus account that has your cash in there, it has your bonds in there, it has your listed property in there, your Australian global stocks in there, all mixed together. We actually make a conscious decision to split them apart. And the way we split them apart is into, it can be all number of buckets, but 3 is a pretty easy number to think about. where the first bucket will have your extremely safe assets. That's where your liquidity is. Cash in the bank, term deposits, or other very safe cash-like investments. And you
So
work
liquidity, accessibility for those watching, I guess.
Yeah.
Correct. And in that bucket we put enough that we'll be able to meet our anticipated expenses for a particular amount of time, maybe 6 months, a year, or 2 years, just depending on how conservative you want to be. And that's there to meet your daily anticipated living expenses. Now the second bucket will often consist of something that has low risk assets in it. Now these aren't things that can not go down, but they're expected to have smaller levels of volatility. And the types of things that we'd put in that second bucket would be things like bonds. It could be some low risk property style investments that generate an income. It can be shares. It can be some lower risk blue chip shares. They might sit in that intermediate bucket as well. But in that bucket we put things that might sort of see us out for a 3 to 5 year period. Again, there's always flex around it. And we think it's unlikely that that bucket of assets will have negative returns for a material amount of time. And how are we sure about that? How can we say that that's going to happen? We have a lot of history from market data.
Yep.
We can model it all up and understand how those assets work together. Some go up and some go down at different times to help smooth out the ride. And we can create what we sort of consider a low risk bucket, where it might not go up every year, but it will get better than cash over a 3 to 5 year period, we believe. And that means that if there's any ups and downs in the market, we can start drawing on that bucket.
It's interesting that the bucket, and I use it all the time in my work, but sometimes being Aussies, we love bricks and mortars.
We do, yes.
You know, and sometimes how do we put that in another bucket? Because common mistake, because our topic is common mistakes. In retirement, common mistakes people
You don't want to have to sell your home, right, to retire. Which a lot
Well,
of
this is
people
what I'm
do.
saying. A lot of people say, well, I've got all these properties in retirement. How does that work?
Well, it comes back to that word we used before, right, liquidity. Property does have a characteristic where if it's an investment property and we're renting it out, we can generate a reasonably stable income from it. But if you need to realise the capital, it's all or nothing. Yeah, you can't sell individual, or you can sell individual bricks. You get a buck a piece, maybe. But that's a lot of bricks to move.
Exactly.
Garage sale.
Garage sale.
But that needs to be considered in the profile, obviously.
Yes, exactly.
But for me, the real power in the bucket is what sits in the high risk bucket. And that's where you're putting the things that you don't think you'll have to touch for 5+ years.
Yep.
That's where your shares sit, your Australian shares, your international shares, maybe even some alternative assets. They sit in the high risk bucket. And the whole idea is that no one wants to be in the situation where the markets drop and you have to sell assets at a loss to fund things right. By having things in that higher risk bucket with the buffer of the low risk bucket and the liquidity bucket sitting there as well, that should give you enough ammunition to sit out any drawdowns in the market.
Such a good strategy then, Dave. Like when we sit down and talk to the client about it, when you really explain to the clients, it just all makes sense. And you've got your cash available for the next year or two, then we can draw on other defensive assets and we really put away your property and your shares, so we're not drawing on it.
And I think it allows people to be comfortable taking a bit more risk as well, doesn't it? If you mentally categorise those assets in the high risk bucket as things that you don't need to touch for 5+ years, you get less worried about what's happening day in and day out on the share market.
Absolutely. And that's the common thing, especially retirees have, right? They're watching news, they're like concerned, the market's gone down today, what's going to happen?
My mother-in-law, she'll ring, I saw on a current affair. I'm like, here we go. It's real. It's on a current affair.
Absolutely.
They love it.
Thanks for that, Dave. Any other things that common mistakes do you think?
Well, another thing that comes to mind is not thinking of longevity. We are living longer.
Number one,
Right, so
we're living 20, 25 years from retirement.
That's correct. And you've got to have enough assets to back you up for that long. Right? And then, more importantly, towards the later end of your life, the aged care costs.
Well, they're through the roof. They're crazy. And then the way they capture onto your house and all your last left bit of capital that you have.
Absolutely, and that's another increased cost that you got to factor in, right? So that it's those things that I find very common that people don't really think about or don't factor it in.
Yeah.
I mean, beyond that though, Ricky, I mean, what is the right time horizon for people to be thinking about? Is it just life expectancy, or do people also start thinking about inheritance and what they want to leave behind for their kids as well? I mean, is it
Giving them nothing.
Yeah, well, good on you. That's what I tell my parents to do. Just spend it all, have fun, and it'll be just fine. But I mean, that horizon can extend beyond your own life expectancy, right? And what you want to leave for the next generation potentially.
I feel like we're in an era where it's even beyond what you want to leave for them, it's also what can you leave for them.
Yeah.
Because as you've alluded to, and you're correct, we're living longer, so expenses are stretching out further, and I don't think, I think maybe fast forward another 10, 15, 20 years, our kids will be set up differently for retirement because it's a much more aware, realised thing, whereas I feel like with our generation, or my generation, for a lot of us, it's sort of like, oh, it'll figure itself out, right? But it's just, between inflation and everything that goes with it, there's a big disparity.
Exactly, and there's a conversation sometimes you have with my clients saying, is your kids part of your retirement? That's another mistake people forget. Because they're living longer, they're staying at home longer as well, right? So you have to factor in the cost as well.
Yeah.
I don't want mine to leave.
Exactly my point. How are you going to fund them when they're 30
No. Well, I don't want them to leave so they can fund me. Absolutely.
That's another strategy. That's a good strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I know you're working on yours. Absolutely.
It's another interesting point on that longevity though, and we said jokingly before that people's plan is to fall back on Centrelink if things get really tough, but we know all around the world that the spending on social welfare is increasing at a very fast rate, and
We have the biggest aging population.
we do. It's a big problem that needs to be funded, and I wouldn't feel 100% comfortable personally saying that in 20 or 30 years' time, when I'm thinking about retiring, that the government will be able to step up and meet all my needs.
I agree.
I want to be self-reliant.
Yeah, well, there's also that, and also the ability. Like, at
Yeah.
what point is it going to tap out and minimise, or because some countries don't even have it.
Correct.
That's another misconception or a common mistake. People think, oh, the retirement age is 67.
Yeah,
And they're thinking that's when the government gives you money, obviously, as you know.
that's right. That's the age pension age,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
that's
People think, oh, I don't like to retire when I'm 60.
and that's been progressive as we are living longer. That's been progressively moving forward, right? It's 55, 60, 65, now it's 67. So another 10, 20 years it might be pushed even
Oh,
further.
100%, for sure.
So it's just because it's a big cost on the government to fund, and they're constantly trying to move it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing I see, especially people not realising what they're doing to their retirement, especially COVID time, when the government allowed $10,000 to be withdrawn, and people withdrew like 20 grand out of their super in two financial years. I was looking at ATO data, there was like $36 billion got out of super. And you think of that long-term effect of that, it's just phenomenal.
Do you think that, like, with what you're saying, and I get it, like, people stress about the market, especially nearing retirement age, and what sort of things occur when people are nearing that age, and the fear factor that comes into it is my money working properly right now? Like, am I retiring at the right age? Like, all the things that come with it. Like, what do you guys see, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, when I talk to my clients, I do say to them, look, if you can work, please do. It's just not because of the money necessarily, it's also the mental and the physical health. So then they're getting out of the home, they've got purpose in life to do things. But that is the biggest common scare that people have is, do I have enough money?
Yeah.
Am I going to finish work today? Can I live for the rest of my life? Would I have money available?
Do you think that people do panic stuff, as in like they overreact and then they start moving things around, assets around, liquidity around, things like that, and then maybe that change is not into their best interests?
Absolutely, because they don't understand market in general, and it's that tangible thing. It's like, well, share market, I don't know what's happening, I don't understand super, and they're in retirement, they want to cash all the money out and leave it in a term deposit.
Yeah.
People want to lock it in, don't they?
That's right.
They want to lock it in and say, I've got this fixed amount here now, I know I can put it in the TD, get 4% return, and at least I know that's what I've got. Because if the market was to fall 10%, gee, I'd really feel bad about that my nest egg has gone down from 500,000 to 450, and I didn't even get to spend it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have that liquidity buffer that you were talking about, and you have it for a couple of years, as in the value of it, that allows you then to pivot into other areas without panicking, I would imagine.
Well, that's right. And if you, if you look at, it's always have to disclaim with this with, past performance is no indicator of future performance, right?
No responsibility taken, everybody. It's just a general conversation
It's
amongst
the
us.
most used phrase in our industry, right? Just about. But historically, and that's always the worst time to sell out as well when things go bad. If we look at what's happened when the market's fallen over the last, 40, 50 years of Australian data,
Yeah.
what we often find is that when the markets fall within the next 12 months, typically, not always, but typically, they've rebounded what they've lost and even got a little bit back.
Yeah.
So when the market falls 10%,
Stay the course.
when the market falls 10%, if you panic at that point, not only are you locking in that loss, but quite often you're missing out on that bounce on the upside as well.
Absolutely.
You're hurting yourself twice.
Yeah. So I'm going to use a saying that I saw the other day. It's when to pause and when to stay the course. So I think that sort of leans in on what you're saying. I guess, as advisors, when would you suggest that, if you're nearing retirement age and you haven't had a retirement plan or a strategy done for you before, what age is, obviously there is no right age, but what age would you go, you know what, if it's not your thing of what you would normally do as part of your wealth journey, what is the age it's a good time to go, I'm nearing that point, come and see somebody?
There's no real age, again, like you've already mentioned it, but I think once because mid-30s, people start getting mortgages and they want to do that, so that's fine. I think from mid-40s, I think people should definitely start thinking about, or at least have a look at the super, because 10% or 12% of my wage is going there over a period of long term. So I would encourage people to at least look and understand
So
what's
that is
happening in
the
the
common
super.
mistake, I'm too young to look at these things.
Or,
But
it's
what
in
about
the
the reverse
background,
of
I don't have to worry about it,
Exactly.
it's like if my employer's putting money
Common
into it.
Yeah, which is very much a young person's mentality, right?
Yeah.
But then if we reverse that, is there a point of, and I think this is a misconception, it's too late. I don't think that,
So
is
the other
it
side
ever,
of the fence, yes.
right, is it ever too late?
Well, yes and no.
There's a pause to all three of you.
The things can be done,
Can be
the
done.
sooner the better.
Yeah.
Right? So then, which means even a small contribution over a long period of time, like we say, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. That can have massive effect.
Okay.
So the later you leave, it does have that effect on how much capital you'll have at retirement.
Yeah.
There are also ways, if you do leave a bit later, that you can look to optimise some of your income streams as well to help access high levels of pension, right? So.
Then you get a choice of, do I take more risk with my money? Do I have more exposure to growth assets?
Yeah.
Because they can give me that return, but then comes the volatility, and that's a different conversation to be had
Yeah.
as well.
And look, and when you do retire, do you guys have a whole put your guardrails on mentality, in that first period? Just because obviously, as you said, we're retiring, we're living for so much longer. Imagine you're going 10-pin bowling, right? Even as an adult, when you first go, you haven't gone for ages, you need those rails up because you're just going to go everywhere. So, is there a mentality or a behaviour or a pattern that you do that when people first retire, you go, okay, let's just take it easy? What does that look like?
Well, it's a hard one because each individual has a preference, per se, of lifestyle that they go by. And we have to kind of compromise what those are. Do you want to go on a holiday every twice a year or once a year versus to seeing the grandkids somewhere else? So yeah, it's a hard balance, I guess.
But generally when people do retire, because just that excitement of retirement, right? They've been planning all these holidays that they were never able to do because they all had kids and paying the mortgage, and now they finally get more time. So you generally see in retirement the first 10 to 15 years the expenses tend to go up because they're traveling more, they're spending more money, and then they gradually comes down because as mobility gets harder, people are not traveling as much as well. So the first 5 to 10 years of retirement, generally the expenses tend to go up.
No, and I get that, but what I would ask you as well is there a sequence of events or a sequence of drawdowns or things that you use in that phase? Do you start drawing down on liquidity? Do you start drawing down on assets? Or is there a routine of what you do?
Then you look at their portfolio and understand what that client's objectives are. If that travel is or the expense is the objective, then again going back to the bucketing strategy, we put that money aside to allow the client to have that. Conversely, we might have to have the conversation. Maybe that's not realistic.
Yeah.
How often do you have to have the conversations, that educational piece? Because when you work in markets, you sort of understand that risk and return, they're linked like this, right? They're very hard to separate. And people often say to me, right, I want, the highest return, but I don't want to take the risk to get it, right? I want to get these great returns, but I don't want to have the downside.
They're married to each other for
a reason. They are.
Yeah.
Is that a common thing that comes up where people sort of have these expectations about what they want to achieve, but their risk settings are just sort of way off to be able to
Willing
achieve
to take the risk, yeah. And especially, again, going back to our previous points, and it's really hard if they have a market dip in the first couple of years.
What's a recovery from that?
Well, it does tend to take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, you're drawing 5-6%.
Yeah.
But that's the minimum that you have to draw. And plus, the market's dropped 10%, so that just does have an effect. But then again, you work on it, and then you work with the client to sort of build that up again.
Yeah.
But the conversation at that point should probably be, look, I know that the market's fallen and that feels bad, and even though I'm looking at it every day, I still feel bad when the market falls. Some adrenaline junkies like seeing the ups and downs. I don't. I'd much rather have that smoother ride, but it can be a hard discussion to say that, I know that the stock market has come off 10%, but this isn't what we should be selling at the moment. We have these other safer assets which we've put here to see us through these stock market dips, and this is what we should be looking at drawing from first, instead of the assets that we think can generate us those higher returns.
So things that have got like lower volatility.
That's right. In that low risk bucket, that's where we should be taking it from, not the part where we might be feeling the most pain, right?
Yeah.
And that ties into life events, for example, real life events, health decline, aging, estate planning complexity, things of that nature. How do you start to draw those amounts, those events?
Yeah, and when you do that, do you start planning in aged care in that retirement for them so that they're forward planned for it?
Absolutely. All our conversation is not just right now, what's happening in 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
What are we planning on doing? And it's generally aged care sort of conversation starts happening when one person sort of passes away, if they're couples, to go, well, what does that look like? Eventually there'll be a time that you'll need that care.
Yeah.
And aged care is a completely another exercise, which people are reluctant to do, but it's a necessary evil that they have to look at.
Yeah.
So 100% is part of the retirement planning conversation.
Yeah, and I guess one of those retirement issues as well that you have is also estate planning, right? Like if you don't, which is what you were leading at before, is what do you want to leave to your kids? How do you structure it? Do you start planning for that now so that, as you do age, it's all sorted and done?
Exactly, that's a common mistake. People don't plan for that. And the consequence of the beneficiaries can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it is important to do that as well.
I was talking to a client the other day who her parents had passed just recently, and it's literally just her and her sister, and her sister is not happy with it. They've just got, the parents have left them 50% each. But as we all know, there are laws and regulations around just because you're entitled 50% each. It also comes down. There's also debates around. It's deemed you don't need that much and I need more. So that sister is leaning on the, well, you don't need it and I need more, and they're just going through this whole legal battle, and that's even with an estate plan. So there's just so many things to consider. Retirement mind shift. So, we talk about these all the time. It's what we're talking about today. How do we go from growth, which we talk, and that's what we do in financial advice. It's all about grow. But then how do we move from that growth mindset once we're nearing that age into a big word for me, stewardship. How do we do that?
Well, it would come down to having that conversation with the client, isn't it? Like to understand, to have that realistic conversation and the expectations as well, I suppose. Because even when we invest the money, at the end of the day, it's the returns depending on how the market's going. So we really need to have realistic expectations. To David's point before, if clients wanting something completely different, but they don't have enough capital to support it,
Yeah.
it's just a different conversation altogether.
But I'll give you an example. You've got a client that you've had for years, they've had a great growth mindset, they've done all of that, now they're hitting retirement, but they still want to grow. How do you then manage that mindset of like your growth plan now needs to be slower or different, or what does that look like?
Yeah. How that we would tackle that is we would work out what client's expectation is, how much amount of income they need in retirement,
Yeah.
and then you sort of reverse engineer that. In order to get that, what percentage that looks like of your capital,
Yeah.
and in order to get, if it's only 6-7% of your capital, why take more risk
It's
with
more
it?
about preserving.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Your mindset change to preserving,
Yeah.
as long as what they're expecting to draw is in line with what they are getting from their portfolio.
Yeah.
So I've had that conversation where we would tell the client, why take extra risk when you don't need to?
Yeah.
You can achieve your outcome with a balance of 50-50 allocation, half in shares, half in cash,
Yeah.
as opposed to chasing bigger returns.
Yeah.
So it is conversation with the client on that.
Yeah. So from your point of view, David, who you're an investor and stuff, how would you realign investments at that stage of life? So you're going from growth to, as we were saying, preservation. How do you recalibrate that for a client?
Well, it is a completely different mindset, isn't it? Because when we're in the accumulation phase, the goal is almost to get as much as you can. You grow it as much as you can, and then we have this number at the end, and then we can sort of work out, how we can allocate now that we've got this amount to work with. And I think the planning just needs to be a lot more deliberate, and it will be different for every single person based on their lifestyle, their health needs,
Yeah.
their family, and just what they want to achieve. What I think the key thing is, and Ricky was touching on this, is that you just need to be a lot more deliberate about your decisions at this point. It's not just a set and forget anymore and let's grow it. It's what is the plan, what is the strategy, and what do we need to do to hit that. The investment mix probably does naturally change because you're drawing down, income becomes a lot more important. So you're potentially shifting away from capital growth to assets that will generate more income, and things like Australian shares that pay high dividends, or maybe some property, maybe some infrastructure, maybe have more bonds in there. But that mix will shift a little bit because you're wanting to be able to draw out in an efficient manner, away from a sort of growth at all costs sort of mindset.
And you talk about dividends and bits and pieces, and that makes me think about tax. So are there different things that you have to do at different times when you're in retirement? Because obviously those different decisions can erode into your income. Am I correct to say that?
Absolutely. Well, tax don't go away, right? So taxes are always
Really?
there. So you can't escape them. However, what happens in retirement, the income stops. So that's the biggest thing, is like you're not getting any more employing, or if you're employees, you're not getting that regular income.
Yeah.
So the benefit of our taxation system is when they start drawing money from super, it's tax free.
Yeah.
But however, if the clients are getting rental income, if they've got a portfolio outside, they might still have to pay tax.
Yeah.
And we see that all the time, don't we, Jay?
Yeah, you balance out the two worlds, the super side and the non-super side, and collectively, what does that look like? And I always say this: you've got like clients that got 5-10 properties, and again, liquidity, it's the how you gonna liquidate? I mean, if you need 100,000, what's
Absolutely.
expensive? What does that look like?
Yeah.
Again,
It's a big problem, isn't it? People like to be very asset rich and cash poor.
Correct.
It's something that we see quite a bit.
Yeah.
Or
And everyone
the-
measures success differently. Some people just want peace of mind.
Yeah.
Some people want high yield, high growth.
Or a person that's retired to have a $5 million house, but no other assets.
Yeah.
They're going to sell.
That's another mistake that we're talking about mistakes. But it's that mindset shift. How do you do that financially versus shifting your mindset to, enjoy life at
Yeah.
that point? So yeah, it's a
Absolutely.
compromise.
Yeah, look, I think it's a never-ending conversation, retirement, what to do, the mistakes, how to do it. But I guess what we'll do is we'll sort of close off today, and I guess what I would ask each of you in the different things of what you do is, what's one piece of advice you would give to a listener about how to structure your habits, regardless of your stage of life, to prepare for early retirement? There you go. Early retirement is the key word.
Well, I would say it's never too late. Start planning early and having a disciplined approach.
Yeah? Okay. Cool. Now the rule is with this, guys, it's going to give me a different answer. I don't want three of the same.
I'm gonna think of something different.
Yeah, we'll go to you last, Jack. We can your mice are still
My
running.
mind's
Yeah.
my mind's in data mode still.
David?
I'd like to hark back to a previous episode that we did and bring this inflation thing back into it, when we're talking about what want to get and what we need from our retirement. With inflation, we've had over the last 5 or 6 years, the price of goods, physical items that we buy,
You're gonna make me cry.
has gone up about 20%,
Yeah.
right? The price of services, and think about what happens when we move into retirement, right? What are we doing more? We're travelling, we've got healthcare costs,
Yeah.
all of that. That's actually gone up double the amount, about 40%.
Yeah.
And that's a structural thing we've seen in Australia for a long, long time, that the price of goods has been sort of under control, the price of services goes up a lot faster.
Yeah.
So I'd probably say for a final thought today, just don't underestimate what your lifestyle will cost and how much it can inflate at.
Yeah.
As your consumption bucket changes from a working accumulator to a retired, someone that's drawing down on their capital.
Yeah. I've said it before, you're a wise man. So in my layman term, what I take out of that is it's fight the combat of inflation
Yep,
and start planning for it ahead.
absolutely.
Okay. Jack, all down to you. Come on, hit us with something good.
Don't look at my dictionary, what to say.
We don't have all night, Jack. People are waiting.
I think it's always the people plan to fail sometimes, or we fail to plan sometimes.
Yeah.
We don't intentionally
No.
want to fail.
If you don't plan, you plan to fail.
Correct. So I think the earlier the better. That's the key message.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, thank you so much, guys.
Thank
It's
you.
obviously always an interesting subject. It's something that's none of us are escaping. So thank you so much, David. It's been so lovely having you. We really
Anytime.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks,
Jack?
thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Ricky.
Thank you,
Until
Mel.
tomorrow.
Thanks for having us.
Anytime.
Full good.
Retirement isn't the end of a journey, it's a different kind of strategy. So thanks for joining me on the Riker Capital Wealth Guide podcast. My last words, keep your structure clear, your mindset steady, your goals in motion, because the best retirements are built, not stumbled into. So in the next episode of the Wealth Guide podcast, we're going to talk about how to future-proof your wealth with AI, innovation, and other asset classes, not just for retirement, but for generational legacy.